listening? Damn.
Hey guys, I'm Courtney.
And I'm Josh.
Welcome to the Infinite Balance Podcast.
We'll navigate parenting, relationships, health, fitness, and so much more.
So get a drink, pull up a chair, and let's hang out.
Hey guys, what's going on?
Hello.
So this week's episode is about relationships. A lot of people that have met me and Courtney have both told us that they've never seen a couple that works together like we do. They've never seen a couple, with kids or without kids. The way we've lived through our entire relationship, through all the ups and downs and all the crazy stuff that's happened, we are a team. That's the one thing we've heard unanimously among everybody that we've ever come in contact with is just we have this original magnetic connection, and it's a powerful force, and it's something that a lot of people compare themselves with. And, it's not something that we try to do, but we figured we would do this just to kind of share some of the stuff that we've been through and our ideas about relationships and how to successfully get along, basically.
I think a good thing to kind of throw in there too is I think that we get all those compliments about how good we are together, how we complement each other, because we haven't been together we haven't even been together for 10 years yet. And we've been through 3 kids. Obviously, we got married. We've been through 5 moves, maybe more. And we've been both of us doing different schooling opportunities, doing schooling together, countless jobs. We've kind of been through a lot in our less than 10 years together. And I think because of that, it has given us kind of a leg up on figuring each other out.
And that's not even all of it. There's even, family medical emergencies and losses and just everything, all the good and the bad that you can possibly crunch into our time span has been crunched into it so far. So it's been an interesting journey.
Interesting, but fun.
Yes, definitely. So when we first met, it was actually by chance. I used to work at a agency for disabled individuals, and I took up an overnight shift just as an opportunity for overtime. And just by chance, I met a certain beautiful young lady who walked in when I was looking like absolute trash. And,
I was nervous as anything for this job.
Yeah. And we talked about it a little bit more in depth in the first episode, but it was sparks ever since our first meeting. I think we both fully understood subconsciously doing things like stalking each other's Facebooks. And it was the new age romantic love story of our time.
It was a good one, though. But I agree. I think we both knew right from the start that there was something. And I think we've said that in the first episode that I don't necessarily know that we both knew what it was, but we knew that there was something that intrigued us.
Definitely. And you were cute.
You too.
Ever since we first met, there's been a lot of interesting challenges. Since... not necessarily day one, but almost day one, with the Facebook thing. We've had our own interesting challenges to overcome, for everything from finding each other on Facebook to dealing with, 3 kids in a global pandemic and everything you can think of in between. And so we've had to come together and really step out of ourselves and understand and realize that me and you are a unit. Yes. We are one entity against everything else. And I think that our level of understanding of that is what's driven our success so far. We've been through a lot of learning about each other, and very quickly, I think. We've had to learn how we navigate things. We've had to learn how we navigate life, kids, jobs,
moves,
everything, all kinds of different things. So the pace at which we had to kind of get to know each other was a little bit more accelerated than I believe the average relationship would be considered. And one of the first things that we learned about each other is she's a brat and I am a brolic.
1000%. I like to say I'm not a brat, but I think I've gotten better.
She's told me she's a brat.
I know I'm a brat. I just don't want to be a brat. So.
And for those of you who don't know the term brolic, look it up. But it's basically, a male version who's hard-headed, a male version of a brat that's hard-headed.
Which is accurate. Brolic just sounds so much better than brat.
Yeah, and tougher. But, we've also had a lot of methods that we've had to work out with coming around that and getting, taking down our walls from previous relationships and previous experiences, just in general, and really allowing ourselves 1,000% to just connect to each other, and not just on a mental or physical level, but on a very spiritual level. I think ever since the first day I met you, there hasn't been one instance or 1 year, even up until today, there's still times that this happens where, I just look at you and I'm like, wow, I can't believe that somebody else can understand me as good as you do, and it just amazes me.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think I've ever had that. I know I have never had that connection with anybody. And I think something we've said since the beginning of our relationship is that we're both very strong believers in that everything happens for a reason, and where people are put in your lives and situations happen for certain reasons. And, we've said from the beginning that I have felt like my maternal grandparents and my uncle, that they were looking out for me, and they sent Josh to me just when I least expected it and wasn't looking, and knew that he would be that person that I needed. And you've always said that you felt like your father sent me to you, and that
he'd absolutely love you.
We have this theory that the four of them are upstairs in heaven and hanging out, and they were like, hey, let's see what happens with this.
We got it right, guys.
Yeah, so
we did it.
So we're and I think that's a big reason as why we also spiritually connect, because we do understand that whatever the reason or whoever or whatever, there was a spiritual force that made us find each other.
There was too many odd coincidences just out of the blue that it basically sideswiped us both, I feel like. Like I said, the day we met, there was sparks, but, leading up until that point, I had no idea who you are. And the very first second that I saw you, I was like, boom!
Yeah, we had never... So when I started, just a little backstory for it, I was in my second week of training for this job. It was 2-week trainings. And the second week, the first 2 days, you were actually in where you would be working. And so I had been holed up in a classroom for a week. We did not see each other. We did not overlap. We had no idea the other person even existed until that moment, which was also kind of cool.
Yeah, and to tell you the truth, going back to what I said to start this whole portion of it is, I feel like me and you definitely get know each other before we know ourselves. And I think that comes with our background in, we have a lot of background in psychology. We have a lot of background in behavioral management.
Yes.
So me and Courtney tend to notice a lot of things, and I
think sorry to cut you off, but I think the best example is there will be times where I'll be like, all right, what's wrong? I know you're in a bad mood, and you're like, no, I'm fine. And then an hour later, you're like, I am in a bad mood. I didn't even realize. I can we pick up on each other's cues as to what we're feeling. And a lot of times, like you said, it's before we even know we feel that way.
Yep. There's been a lot of instances where when we get into arguments or when we get into disagreements, I notice we have it's almost like an artful dance that we do. And it's not dancing around issues, although it comes up sometimes. Yeah. I think that's the same in every relationship, where sometimes it's just not the appropriate time. But I also think that's something we deeply understand.
Yeah.
Not to say that we hold anything back from each other, because we absolutely don't. I think, we're going back to the Office reference, I think we are like Pam and Jim in the one episode where they're trying to surprise each other with facts about each other, and they're like, yep, already knew that. I remember that. You told me that. We know each other so deeply that we kind of know, like even getting into a disagreement sometimes, or, you know, if something's wrong in our head, we'll be like, oh, okay, well, this isn't the right time, but when we talk about it later, you know, this is going to be the best result. And we you know, are just good at being in tune with each other's vibes all the time, you know?
Yeah, and I definitely think there's that fear that, oh, well, they're in a not great mood. They're kind of tired today. And so if I bring it up, you know, it's going to make their mood worse, or their feelings are going to be hurt. And is that really worth it? And I think that's something that every couple has. When you're in a relationship, you kind of can't be afraid of that, because someone's feelings are going to get hurt, because you're not going to see eye to eye 1000% of the time.
Yeah.
And I think that it's just so important to know that in love, someone's feelings will get hurt at some point, but when you love each other, you also know how to help that person and kind of get past those hurt feelings.
And sometimes you even just know that's what they need at that moment. You know, it's an unfortunate thing, but my father always told me, you will never learn from what I tell you. You always have to experience it for yourself. I've said that to you before. And sometimes I need to, for lack of a better term, get broken down before, or what it feels like getting broken down, before I can fully understand and appreciate what's going on.
Yeah.
But like you just said, it's also a process of, I have to step outside of myself in that moment and understand how I am feeling and appreciate that, but also understanding that you're not coming at me from a vicious angle.
Yeah, it's not fun for either person.
Yeah, like you are coming at me from a loving, caring perspective, and you just happen to know that that moment, that's what I needed.
Yeah.
You know?
And we both have definitely had those moments, and I know there's been times where you've told me something that I know, but I don't necessarily want to hear, and I get upset in that moment, and then honestly, like 5-10 minutes pass, and it's sitting there that, you know, you've planted that seed in my head, and 5-10 minutes later, and I'm like, okay, yeah, no, he's right, I needed to hear that, and it's bigger than me, and you know, that's just what it is, you know. And I think, like I said, that's just so important to know that it's not fun for either person. Like, it's not fun calling someone out and hurting their feelings. It's a hard situation to do for both people, but I think it's also so very necessary.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it forces introspection. Like, you know, in those moments, you have to draw yourself back and kind of realize where I'm coming from and put yourself in my mindset. And I think, to be honest, that's where a lot of people see their problems, but they don't know that they're doing it. It's so easy to, like, keep those walls up and keep them strong. But if you're ever going to have a good, solid relationship, you need to let somebody in those walls. Otherwise, you know, that person's on the same level as everybody else. You know, and I think if you can take yourself out of that situation and realize they're trying to help me, they're trying to help me grow, they love me, and this is not coming from a place of viciousness like it was in the past. It's coming from a place of love. Maybe I should look on this. And that's not saying that those situations are always 100% right, because sometimes it's a give and take. Sometimes you learn from each other in those situations. Sometimes it wasn't what you thought or what I thought, but we still know how to navigate that situation really well.
Yeah.
You know, and even, I don't think there's one time where we went without speaking for more than, like, I don't know, 10 minutes, 20 minutes.
Yeah, we always kind of reel it back in, and we always kind of realize, a lot of times it comes out where we both end up, if we're not physically together, calling each other, being like, hey, I'm sorry. Like, we'll call each other at the same time, but we also understand, too, I think, when we're maybe pushing that person to a point where it is, like, hurting their feelings more than it needs to. And we're good at being like, hey, listen, I want to apologize for saying X, Y, Z. And on the other side of it, we're also very good at being like, hey, thank you for bringing this to my attention. I'm sorry I reacted in this negative manner.
Yeah.
And a lot of that comes down to, honestly, we end up doing this a lot because we're competitive. And we don't want to be the one that's wrong or the one whose feelings are hurt. So we'll try to almost, like, one-up each other.
And I think, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
And I think on the opposite side of that, me and you have also experienced a lot of loss separately in our own lives. And I think we also have a deep understanding that love is eternal, but our situation, is it worth giving up that time together? You know, am I really going to be so angry because I really did do something wrong and I'm realizing this, and so am I going to take it out on you and waste so much time out of our lives?
Mm-hmm.
When time alive is really finite, you know?
Yeah.
I'd rather be spending time with the person that I love than fighting and being angry, you know?
And I think we both, especially because we do, right now, just being so busy with our kids and jobs, you know, I work the weeks and I'm home at night, and Josh works the weekends and he's home at night. And so we don't get a lot of overlapping time. And I think that's been really good for helping us not have arguments with each other, because when something comes up, we really don't have the time to be competitive with each other or try to control the narrative of whatever it is.
I would say not having arguments with each other, but different ways of...
I feel like now we have discussions instead of in the past where it might be a long drawn out conversation argument. Now we have a discussion, and that discussion is us and maybe not seeing eye to eye, but by the end of it, we see where the other's coming from and we're able to move forward.
Whether we like it or not sometimes.
Yeah. Well, that's without saying.
But it happens. That's a part of growing as a couple, you know?
And I think a big part for couples is having an open line of communication. I think that's one of the biggest things. And I think that's where we are kind of right now, because we are so busy, like I said. I think we've really improved on our communication with each other so that things aren't building up and coming to front in a big storm, because for 2 months we were bottling up that every time someone said something, this one phrase in particular, it really irritated. You know, we don't have the time to not communicate. Communication is so key in every relationship, whether it's a relationship romantically, it's a relationship like a friendship, worker. You have to have open lines of communication in every type of relationship. But I think it's so important in a relationship that is going to be for the rest of your lives.
Yeah, and I think we have always had an abnormal level of communication, but in those particular realms, we have had a lot of issues in the past where it's about feelings, you know, and like me and you are bottlers. Like we're used to not talking about our problems because we're used to being the people that people rely on to get things done and go and do it. And we've just always done that.
I don't know if you guys are familiar with Enneagram, but I'm an Enneagram 2. I'm a helper. I want to help everyone. My feelings, I push them aside. I want to get things done for others. So I wanted to throw that in there because that's a big part of me bottling things up. And,
you know, it's bigger than communication in the same way, too, where an example of that, where if that's causing communication issues, that is something you need to be introspective about. And that's a situation where I would come in and be like, well, no, you need to face this situation, you know? Which
you definitely have done.
Yeah. And you've done it with me just the same, and that's how we function. You know, that's how we do well together. But, you know, I do think that we've always made, like, a lot of relationship agreements, especially right off the bat, where we promised each other certain things and, you know, we're going to handle this way, we're going to do this way. And I think that's where our communication has always been stellar, regardless of our own personal things, you know? But we have worked on that, and it's something we will always continue to work on. There's new levels to a relationship, no matter how many years you've been together.
Every day, as an individual, you grow, which means every day your relationship grows, which means every day you need to be changing how you do things, even if it's just a minuscule measurement of how you change it. Nothing is ever going to be 100% for a long time, because as you evolve as a person and in a relationship, you have to evolve what those needs for that relationship are.
Fully agreed. And another big portion of it, besides communication, is also respect. Because you can communicate your wants and not have respect for each other, or communicate your needs and not have respect for each other. And that's another big relationship mistake that people make, because then it's one-sided. You know, it's not both sides talking to each other, you know, even arguing it out, and then, you know, equally coming to a conclusion. It's one side wins, one side loses. It's never an equal thing. So I think respect is a huge, huge part of it. And I don't just mean respect in terms of arguments and talking things and whatever. I mean it in roles in a relationship. Like me and you throughout our whole history, there was a time where I was the worker, you were the stay-at-home mom. Now I'm the stay-at-home dad and you're the worker. Cleaning the house, doing dishes, everything. We have done such a great balance of, doing everything the same, like doing everything equal. Even when we're at work, we come home and we still try to take up the slack, or we tell the other one to go rest if you've been having a rough day or whatever. And I think we dance that balance really well because of the amount of respect that we have for each other.
And I think something that we have started to do that has made a difference is we now will say to each other, like, hey, I just want you to know, like, thank you for doing this. I respect you for doing that. Or we will acknowledge the word respect with each other, because I think there was a while where we didn't, and there were situations where we would feel like the other one wasn't respecting our wishes or what our role or whatever, and we wouldn't really say it. And then when we did, it was like, oh, that's not at all what it is. I feel bad that you feel that way. And so we've become very good at letting each other know, like, hey, I might not be showing it the way I want to, but I want you to know how much I respect you. And I feel that's just so important in a relationship to say that to each other.
Yeah, I agree. And also having to do with respect is a sort of aspect that we've recently discovered about each other, especially being the helper type personalities and stuff like that. When you take steps back from yourself and you realize that you're not giving the full amount of respect to your significant other, you start to understand some things. And not that we weren't being respectful to each other, like we were really well, but I think we've reached a new level where, I fully started seeing where Courtney would come home upset, and she would not necessarily bottle it up or not necessarily be upset with anybody or anything here, but I could see, like, that vibe thing, like I could feel something was off. And out of respect, I would be like, listen, go sit down, go talk, you seem, and I would put it out there, like in her face kind of thing, so that she can face what she's feeling. I see that you're off. Something's going on. Is there anything bothering you? No? Okay. Why don't you go take a couple minutes and go hang out, go chill with the kids, go take a shower, go do something. And at first we both saw that as like a weakness when we started doing that, where it was like, whoa, what do you mean? Like, I want to do this. I don't want to take a shower right now. Like that type of thing. But
that's stubbornness.
Yeah.
Too.
But it ended up being like a moment where we realized, oh, well, no, there was something wrong, and I should be talking about it, and there's no reason why I'm not.
Yeah.
And stuff like that, you'd be surprised how many situations come up like that when you have an equal amount of respect for each other.
And I think something to kind of piggyback off of that also is, I know when I need a minute or 10, that because I do want to always help others and put my feelings behind me, is that I often don't say yes to taking time for myself. And that's something that recently, I think because of the pandemic and so much family time, I've realized was very important to say yes to, was taking time for yourself. I was getting to a point where I was, if not already in it, very close to depression, just because I'm such a person that I need to be busy. I need to be going out. I need to run to the store. I need to be doing those things. And when you're in a global pandemic, you can't. And you looked at me and you were like, go away. And not like in a bad way, but like literally go away. And you were like, go to Jersey, go get a hotel, hang out with your sister, have a night by yourself. And that was one of the hardest things for me to say yes to, because taking time for yourself is not something I do. And so I wanted to throw that in there, that I feel that that's so important when your partner is telling you, you need to go take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, a day, an hour, a weekend, whatever it is. When your partner is saying to go do that, as hard as it might be to leave that person, it's so important to not be afraid in a relationship to take time for yourself.
And it might be a hard pill to swallow. You know, for a lot of people, I know it's a thing of pride. Like, no, I'm fine. I can do this. I can handle this. Yeah. That's not what it's about, guys. It's
not personal.
Yeah, it's about realizing that this person cares for you and they see you're on this brink, but you don't see it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think the most important thing to take away from this is I was right.
I was about to say it's about having understanding for each other. You're gonna rub it in my face. No, but you were right in that situation, and it was something that I remember even when you said it. I was like, I know I need to, but I can't. But I didn't actually have a reason as to why I couldn't. It's just because my version of self-care is like, all right, I'm gonna go to the nail salon real quick, and then I'm gonna make up for that time that I was gone. Because I feel guilty about leaving you with the kids or about leaving or about taking time to myself because our time to ourselves are completely different.
Yeah.
And so I feel bad when I take that time for myself, but it's so important for you to take time for yourself in a relationship because if you never take time to just decompress and do nothing. I'm not saying like go take a 10-minute break and like be on your computer or your phone doing business stuff or doing work stuff. I'm talking about like nothing.
Getting away.
And I'm very big with my Beachbody business on social media. And so that was one of the things that I stepped away from that weekend. It wasn't a weekend of like, hey, go away and like be on your phone, still running your business. I was still running my business, but I heavily took a step back that weekend to pour into myself. And I needed that. And I am so thankful that you recognized that and really pushed me to do that. And I think that's very important for us to be able to help each other out like that. And not just us, but everyone.
Yeah. And I think we do a good job of that, you know, and we grow to new levels every single day. Like it even surprises us, you know, when we talk about where we were a month or so ago or 2 months ago or whatever, like you know, we can't even believe the level that we were at compared to the level that we are at, you know?
Yeah, even 6 months ago to now, both of us have just grown so much. And I really feel that our relationship, because of that, has grown.
Yeah. I was very surprised to hear for the pandemic, and this is no judgment at all to any of the couples out there that were experiencing this. But I was very surprised at the level of breakups and divorces and things like that. And I just found it very shocking. And I even told somebody who lives near us that I literally married my best friend and my legitimate soulmate, like my connection. There's no way I would not want to be around you. I don't know. It's just a thought that I had because you brought up the past 6 months that, you know, that's just how I feel about it. You know, I don't think there's nobody else that I could really get along with in a relationship like this. Like, I'm a very particular person, you know. Yeah. You know this.
We both are pretty particular, though.
Yeah, you know.
Just different ways, but yeah.
But I think to wrap it up before, you know, we do the...
Oh, gosh.
That it's about a good amount of, like we said, communication, respect, understanding, balance, and equality. Balance and equality kind of combine all of those. Because when you're balanced and equal, you have that respect, you have that communication, you have the understanding, you have the love that kind of guides the situation rather than your ego, you know? And I think that's the most important thing to remember. Being from the two most competitive people you could probably run into in our own aspects of our personalities, if we say that we can put ourselves aside to make this work, then I believe that anybody can do it. And it's not to down talk us, it's to say we're that stubborn.
Very stubborn. Like, can't even express how stubborn we are.
You ready for the lightning rounds?
Oh, lightning questions.
There's going to be an episode where you have to do the lightning noise. It's got to be bassy.
Oh, gosh. All right, Josh. What is your one favorite part of our relationship?
My one favorite part of our relationship is what we've been talking about in depth this whole time. Is that I really never truly thought, and this is going deep for a second, but I've been through a divorce before. And in that relationship, I settled for it because I thought that it was the best I can do for the life that I wanted to live. I didn't think I deserved any better. I didn't think I, needed anything different. And then the relationship ended, quite badly. And, it like being in this relationship, compared to every other thing that I've ever done, friends, family, ex-girlfriends, everything. I've never met somebody who understands and respects me on the level that you do. And I got to thank you for that. Like, it's amazing, because if you knew how fearful I was of that growing up and being in all the situations that I was in, like, it's amazing.
Well, I love you.
I love you. Everybody break out your tissues. Question number 1 for you. What is the hardest thing you've had to get used to in our relationship?
The hardest thing, it's something that we've honestly talked about, is being called out on when I'm being a brat, when I'm not facing my emotions, and when I'm not being honest about my emotions because I'm afraid of hurting your feelings or whatever it is. You, like, part of my French, you call me on my bull. Mm-hmm. I left the French out, but you call me on it, and that's hard. That's really hard for me to face my imperfections head on. Mm-hmm. And you force me to do that, but in a good way. And so I have to thank you for that.
I was going to say you're welcome. So.
But I'm growing from that. So as hard as that is, it's also helping me where I am in my life right now, because I'm being able to now look at those imperfections without you having to be like, hey, your stubbornness is standing in your way, or whatever it is. I'm looking inside at things like my anxiety, or not that that's an imperfection, but I'm looking at things that have stopped me from doing things before and facing them and being like, all right, well, how do I change it? Why am I letting that happen? Mm. So
I don't call any of the things that she's calling imperfections imperfections, for the record.
No, he doesn't.
I don't think there's anything wrong with her, and I've told her that she's perfect in every way, and that includes the ways that she's growing. This, I'm growing too. So we're in this together every step of the way,
yes, we are.
And, you can hear, I believe, in how she refers to her imperfections as something that is, deep-seated. There's a lot of background to it,
Yeah, it's struggles that probably have been there for a very long time. Mm. I mean, I know something that I have always feared and have looked at as an imperfection is, and this goes with the Enneagram too, of wanting to please everyone, and I don't want to ever do or say something that might turn someone off. Mm-hmm. And recently I've realized, well, why does that matter? If I'm changing what I say or how I say something to appeal to the masses, I don't want the masses. Mm-hmm. I want the people who want to be around me because of who I am, not mm-hmm. because of who I'm showing them I could be. Mm-hmm. That's something I've always, growing up, I always wanted to be the popular kid who, mm-hmm. And so I would adapt to the people I was with at that time to please them. Mm-hmm. Where now I'm like, what the F? Mm-hmm. Who cares?
I like you the way you are, so screw them.
Heck yeah, bro. Question 2, Josh. Just waiting for it.
I still have the hand motions, by the way.
Yeah, there's hand motions. Ugh. You guys are missing out. What is your biggest challenge in our relationship?
Something that I do constantly is my biggest challenge with our relationship. I would say obsessing. If something happens, we get into a fight, or like I feel like I've really hurt your feelings or something, you know how I can get like super cyclic about things, and I try to stop myself from that because of the awareness that you've brought to me, in the past. So I think that is one thing that I have a challenge with, is just like, and not even just that type of obsession, but like, for those of us who don't know us, like, she's a bit on the messier side. I'm a bit on the cleaner side of things.
I'm an organized mess, okay? I know exactly where it is in the mess.
Not in a horrible way. It's
No.
just our personalities. So
Yeah.
from, again, going back to previous relationships, like previous situations that I've been have forced me to kind of be like, not an OCD cleaner, but I do have OCD. So it kind of cycles into that mode. So just, the understanding that, hey, she's going to put her stuff away. She's going to clean up her dishes, this, that, and the other thing. Like, not to make you sound like you don't do anything, because you don't. But, I can obsess over one cup on the kitchen counter, and that can trigger a whole situation,
Yeah, and it's something that, like you said, it's not that I'm not going to do it. I just don't always do it right away. It takes me a little bit.
Yeah.
That's I think what you're saying is that you obsess over, like, oh my God, she hasn't done it yet. Mm-hmm. Even though I'm going to.
And it's not even about her necessarily. It's more about my getting over my previous experiences, where it's more on like, oh my God, am I going to have to do it? Like, that's the heaviness of it. Like, I'm going to have to clean that cup up. And it doesn't just happen with her, but that's one of the biggest things overall I've had an issue with, is not obsessing over stuff, not obsessing over situations that happen and things that we say to each other and whatever, just feeling out the vibes and letting it ride.
Yeah.
Number 2 for you.
I tried it.
You did. How do you step outside of yourself to work with me when you know you're wrong?
How do I step outside of myself to work with you when I know I'm wrong? Which isn't often. Just gotta throw that out there. It's far less often than you like to think it is. But how do I step outside myself? I don't know how I do it. I think it's just one of those, I know you're right, and I might not love it, but I also know that it's coming from a place of love and that I very much love you. And so I'm going to just like suck it up and try to not fight you every step of the way on it. That's really, I think, how I do it. That's a really hard question, because I don't.
So what, I guess maybe if I were to rephrase it, when you're in that mode of trying to swallow the pill, basically, what's your like, how do you learn from that, or what's the end of that situation feel like for you? Like,
if it's a situation where I feel like more than just, okay, I need to make this adjustment for this topic or this particular scenario. If it's something that I'm like, I realize that you've called me out on, I've realized that you're right. I realize you're right when I've realized that it's something I need to fix, or I need to change, or I need to adapt to. And so I just got into that mind frame of, okay, this was the situation. This is how it felt. It didn't feel great. And so next time I'm in a similar situation, I need to have it in my mind, the outcome I want. Mm-hmm. And that I don't want you to feel however you felt, that you then had to call me out or be like, hey, you're wrong. Mm-hmm. Not that you ever say it like that, but and at the end of it, I feel better knowing that whatever it is, we have figured it out. Mm-hmm. Whatever the issue might be or the topic might be, we've worked it out, and I know next time it'll be better. Mm-hmm. And so I come out, as much as I don't like being wrong, I come out of it feeling more confident and stronger, knowing that the next time it will both feel better. Mm-hmm.
I agree. I honestly agree with you 100%. I think that's kind of how I swallow the same pills or whatever, if you will. There's not really a trick to it.
No.
You just have to do it and stop the judgment, I feel like. Mm-hmm. Like our personalities are quick to judge. And I think especially against ourselves. So we get on the defense, like, oh my God, they're attacking me or whatever. And I think the whole thing is just, no, they're not.
Yeah. And I think we both do, like you said, we both do that. And we have to call each other out mid both of us doing it. We have, like, I know I have to recognize that I'm doing it And it's not just you being on the defense. And I have said it, and you've said it to me, where we're saying to each other, I'm not attacking you. I hear what you're saying XYZ.
Yep.
I want to make sure you're hearing what I'm saying. And it's literally separating ourselves from what we're physically and in.
From that, like, mania almost.
Yeah, that mania of like, oh my God, they're not listening to what I'm saying. And we're both thinking that about the other, even though we are hearing it. So pulling yourself out of it is hard.
Yeah.
But once you pull yourself out of it and you can explain to the other person how to pull themselves out of it, it makes it much easier. And it helps you the next time you get into a situation like that.
Yeah. And I think a small valuable tip that we don't have to elaborate too hard on is, with everything else, I think it goes along with respect. The key to this answer, I believe, is just what Courtney said. You have to be open to listening. And stop trying to prove your point. Because sometimes they get your point. I know I have a lot of problems with this. Sometimes they get your point and you're just not listening in the moment to understand that.
And that definitely happens with both of us.
Question 3.
What is the best advice you could give to a new relationship?
I think people really try very hard to fall in love. And I think people try very hard to find their soulmate. And I think the only thing that made it so that, well, not the only thing, but the biggest thing that made it so that I was open to immediate connection with you was I was in the mindset of, it is what it is, man. Like, I had just gotten out of a bad relationship. One day I'll find the person that's right for me. It's not a huge deal. Like, there's got to be somebody out there for me. And then I just kind of went on my own and had a good time and did what I had to do, and then you came along. So my thing with that would probably be like, don't sabotage it, dude. Don't start thinking too hard about it. That's one thing that a lot of people do. Like, let it flow. It doesn't have to be anything. It doesn't have to be according to what you believe or, whatever. It just has to be, just let it flow.
Yeah, I will expand on that just a little bit, that I do agree with that because, when we did meet, I was also just ending a relationship that, while I was in it, didn't realize how bad it was, but it was a pretty bad relationship. And I was at that point of like, this is the first time. I'm 22 years old, or just about 22 years old. I'm going to have my own place by myself for the very first time. Like, I'm not looking. Like, whatever happens in my life at this point happens, but I'm done trying to force who the rest of my life is going to be with. And so I think it's just to piggyback on that, like I said, don't force it. Just, don't look for it. It will find you when you least expect it. But if you force it, it's not going to be genuine.
And one fact that I feel like I should point out, especially talking about previous relationships, is me and you were both initially at one point very scared. When we knew what was happening, we were very scared that we were rebounding. And I think, as fast as it came, it left. But I think me and you both made that conscious choice, like we said in previous shows and posts, whatever. The kind of theme of our relationship is whatever's going to happen will happen. Let it flow. Once
we really adapted that kind of as our mantra in our relationship, we kind of just let it go. Because I know I was at that mantra in my life getting out of that relationship. I was like, whatever happens, happens. Whatever goes, goes. Whatever's meant to be is going to meant to be. And I can't fight not knowing why and just go with it. And we both, I think, were at that point in our lives that we were very easily able to adapt that to our relationship and make it work with just whatever happens.
This has been the longest rebound I've ever had.
Yeah. Thanks, babe.
Entirely just kidding. All right. The final question.
Oh, tandem.
There you go. Dualies. What would you say to new parents just starting out in any relationship?
Find time to date your partner. I mean, that's just in general. I think it's very important whether your kids are 1 week old, 1 day old, or your kids are 50 years old. You should always date your partner. But I say it more towards new parents because I think that was something we were very fortunate that we were given those opportunities to go out on a first date post baby. We were able to get that time, even if it's just once a year. You know, we've had kind of a tradition that last year we didn't get to do, just because of when Mila was due and situational. We just didn't get to do it. Was we always go to the melting pot. Mm-hmm. That is like our big date night wrapped into one. Anniversary, birthdays, holidays. We find a point sometime between October and January, because we're both October birthdays, and our anniversaries in January, our marriage anniversary anyway, where that would be our big date night, and we would have a couple drinks. We would go out and we wouldn't worry about
everything else.
We wouldn't worry about everything else. It was just about us two. We wouldn't have our phones. I think we'd like leave them in the car and really just be with each other. So even if your date night just looks at your baby is asleep for 3 hours and you really could go to sleep, don't. Like, watch a movie on the couch.
Take some time.
Take some time to just be like, find a way to date each other, because your kid is going to grow up. At some point, your kid is going to grow up and your kid's going to go to college or move out, and you're still going to have each other.
You're still going to be stuck with a rebound.
You're still going to be stuck with each other, and it's not just important to love each other. You still have to like each other at that point, because you have to not lose each other. And that's very easy to do. And we see it now with having 3 kids, working opposite schedules, running our own businesses, going to school, just being so unbelievably busy. We still find time where, even if it's just 10 minutes, we just lay together and watch The Office, because that's what we do. And then we talk and, all right, I'm going to work, you're going to work, whatever it is. That's when we then go on with our day. But we still make sure that, yes, we love each other, but we also still like each other, because that is very important. And I've said this to Josh in the past, half jokingly, because sometimes you're not going to like each other because you're going to annoy each other. And I've said to him, I will always love you. I just might not always like you. And that's really not true. I always like him. It's just those moments.
I like her no matter what, so.
Except for when I annoy him. But I don't mean it. It sounds worse than like it really is. There's just moments when you're annoying me, pushing my buttons, and I just want to go to sleep, and you're like, hey. And
I get very hyper sometimes.
Poking me, and I'm like, what? And you're literally like, I don't know. There's literally nothing. You're just wide awake, and you're like, I just want to see you smile. And I'm like, that's not the way to do it. In that moment, I love you and I like you. You're just bothering me.
She could write a book on dealing with ADHD in adults.
I've become very good at ignoring. It's almost dangerous with the kids, because I can just tone them out sometimes. And they're very good at ignoring too now, which is not good, because they ignore us.
Sometimes.
But that's my biggest advice. Always date each other so that you still like each other.
I like it. Well, guys, thanks for joining us. Again, if you want to get a hold of any of our socials, I'm going to post the link to our Linktree. You'll get all of our social medias and every platform that you can listen to us under in the description. And hit us up on Instagram.
We want to hear from you guys.
Yeah.
We love when we hear from you.
We want to hear suggestions, questions. We do want to open up the lightning round questions, if this is a segment that you guys enjoy, to questions that you have for us. Whether for both of us or for one to ask the other, whatever. We want this to be as interactive as it can possibly be.
Yes.
So feel free, drop us